Mr. President, Excellencies, first I would like to once again thank all those whose daily work is dedicated to the United Nations and its ideals. All across the globe, people work in the name of the United Nations, wearing the colors and emblems of the UN, giving their effort to make our world a better place, often doing work that only the UN is capable of doing. And in these headquarters and other UN offices, hundreds of people show up every day to ensure that the nations of the world can count on this organization to be the forum where the biggest challenges facing humanity can be discussed, debated, and hopefully set on a path of resolution. Thank you. Mr. President, next year will mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. The UN emerged out of calamity holding the promise of a brighter future, a promise of peaceful settlements of disputes, universal human rights, and the opportunity for all to enjoy peace and prosperity. Despite setbacks, wrong turns, and many bad decisions, these past 80 years have indeed been the most peaceful and prosperous that humankind has experienced. For my own nation, 1944 also marked a new beginning, with Iceland becoming a republic. Iceland's status as an independent nation has been defended not primarily by weapons or alliances, but by a robust system of international law, mutually beneficial cooperation, and strong and universally respected international institutions. For us, it is paramount to safeguard this multilateral system. When the US was founded, it was a time of change and a time that demanded decisions. It was also, it seems to me, a time of creativity in the face of destruction, a time of determination despite despair, a time for hope to triumph over horror. By founding the United Nations, the leaders of the world's nations set a path guided by a shared vision for a peaceful and prosperous world, a faith in fundamental human rights and the equality of nations, large and small. But as Secretary General Antonio Guterres recently stated when speaking about the Summit for the Future, we cannot build a future fit for our grandchildren with systems built for our grandparents, or in the case of a person my age, a system created for my great-grandparents to build a future fit for my own generation and my children. Mr. President, these are also times of profound change. All around the world, technology is fundamentally changing how people experience reality. And to quote Mr. Guterres again, these technologies are being developed in a moral and legal vacuum, without governance or guardrails. This is no small thing, and it is not something that leaders and politicians can treat as trivial or unconnected to other policy issues. While elected representatives and leaders debate how to address challenges that we face, while we attempt to guide our societies towards a better future, there is an ongoing battle for people's attention, convictions, and beliefs being waged through increasingly addictive technologies, often self-guided by overwhelmingly powerful and completely unprincipled algorithms. And this battle will not necessarily be won by those who share a belief in peace and prosperity, or have faith in fundamental human rights and the equality of nations, large and small. As these staggering changes are taking place in our information environment, the world is facing the greatest number of armed conflicts since the World War II. And democratic institutions worldwide are facing a loss of trust. These developments are not happening in a vacuum. In her address accepting the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo in 2021, Philippine journalist Maria Ressa pointed out that without facts, you cannot have truth. And without truth, you cannot have trust. Ressa continued, without trust, we have no shared reality, no democracy, and it becomes impossible to deal with our world's existential problems. Sadly, to an ever more obvious extent, this prospect of a lack of shared reality has now become fact. Malign actors are actively undermining social order across the globe. They are spreading suspicion and fear, fueling despair and rage. They may use technology, but their target is always the very essence of what we are as human beings. The individual rights that have proven vital for the functioning of democratic societies are being subverted. This is why I said in my address to this body 1 year ago that human rights are for human beings and that freedom of expression is not for programmed bots that spread hate, lies, and fear. This is a challenge that we have not yet solved. Freedom cannot exist without accountability. And to paraphrase American historian Timothy Snyder, it must always involve some risk. We know that sacrificing individual rights because of these risks is an unacceptable proposition, akin to burning down the house to kill a spider. An individual, even one with questionable and dangerous opinions, has the right to be heard. In a true democracy, we accept these risks associated with freedom of speech, but we must be careful not to let our freedom be hijacked by those who evade accountability and take no risk. The current danger does not come from free individuals who advocate for their own misguided, crazy, or evil ideas, but vast networks of both paid and unpaid agents, made-up trolls hiding in the shadows, entirely unaccountable for their poisonous contribution to public discourse. This sort of speech is no more a manifestation of the freedom of expression than a forced gathering to salute a dictator is an example of freedom of assembly. Mr. President, these are issues that exemplify the urgent need for a strong multilateral system. However, this system cannot be left to provide answers to how to maintain itself. The real power lies with national governments and leaders across the world. All of us who are entrusted with positions of authority and influence in our own societies must shoulder our responsibility to maintain and strengthen a multilateral system based on the UN Charter. For this, we need more interaction, more humanity, and much more unscripted interactions at the highest level. Mr. President, Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine, Sudan's civil war, and the devastating conflicts in the Middle East all rage on while other longer-running conflicts grow protracted. One thing that all have in common is that innocent civilians bear the highest cost. By invading Ukraine and violently seizing its territory, the Russian Federation has committed a flagrant breach of the UN Charter and derogated from its primary obligations as a permanent member of the Security Council to uphold international peace and security. The Russian Federation repeated threats of using nuclear weapons are reckless and they are dangerous. In the case of the Russian Federation's actions, there should be no doubt who is in the right and who is in the wrong. It is Mr. Putin who has concocted a false narrative around his invasion of Ukraine's territory. It is he who started this senseless war, and it is in the Kremlin's power to end it at any time by withdrawing its forces from all the territory that is internationally recognized as belonging to Ukraine.